Good morning, Husker fans. Welcome back to Coffee with Husker Big Red. This is episode 3. I'm Chris Peterson, and we'll be joined here by Danny Gillette shortly. Just having a few technical difficulties, but he'll be hopping on the chat here soon. So I saw we already had a few comments here. Good to see you. Good morning, James. Go Big Red. So we'll get things going here. Once again, a live chat. So today, I'm thinking that we'll break down some depth chart, look at some of the depth chart predictions, kind of go, through each position, maybe not touch on each one, but we'll try to highlight some of the key position battles, look at some of the guys who could be surprise starters. I thought there was some interesting revelations, I guess, in terms of health that could impact, some of these position battles moving forward. So that's what we'll be looking at today. So if you want to talk about the depth chart, game by game predictions, anything else, go ahead and throw your comments or questions in the chat, and we can allow you to also lead the discussion. And if you guys haven't already, please make sure that you hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, get into the comments section. Hope you're having a great Saturday. It's hard to believe that we are less than 5 weeks away from the season opener against Cincinnati at Arrowhead. We'll be doing one of these every weekend, every Saturday to preview all these games. So before long, this will be, our tailgate show once again. So go Big Red. Good morning there, Justin from YouTube. So while we're waiting for Danny, looking at this Nebraska depth chart, I think you should feel pretty good about it. I mean, up and down from quarter, especially like focusing on the offense. I feel like quarterback is pretty strong. You've obviously got Dylan Raiola there as the starter, kind of entrenched. Behind him, I think if you are looking for a backup this season, probably going to be Jalen Gramstad. Maybe Marcus Tavalia, but overall, even with TJ Lateef developing, I think Nebraska's quarterback room is in a really good spot. Multiple Elite 11 guys, multiple blue chip prospects, and I think a solid veteran in Gramstead to kind of, mentor those younger guys. So not really much drama there. I think we kind of know how that's going to sort out. Hopefully only one guy's going to have to play at quarterback this season. And that's Dylan Raiola. And I think, like I've said many times, I do believe that Nebraska's fortunes are tied to Dylan Raiola. If he takes a huge step forward in his play this season, I believe that Nebraska will take a huge step forward in their play this season. I mean, it really is, when you look at the talent that they have, I feel across the board, the X factor or the difference maker is going to be that quarterback position. And it's been, somewhat average for Nebraska for a long time, whether it's, Adrian Martinez or, Casey Thompson, Shepard Purdy, whoever. Nebraska hasn't had a difference maker at that position. And Dylan Raiola showed signs of it last year. He needs a better supporting cast, which I think Nebraska's, provided him this season. And if he can really deliver and be, an all Big Ten caliber quarterback, I do think it's very realistic for this team to be in the playoff conversation. I know some people think that I'm crazy. I know that, we put out our recent prediction here. Looks like we'll have Danny loading up here to the stage in just a second.
Yep.
Yeah, we're going there.
Computer issues. Ugh.
All right, now we're back to normal.
Everybody.
Yeah, so as we were just talking, Danny, welcome to the show, man. How you doing on this Saturday morning?
I'm doing well. It's cooled down a little bit here, so that's welcome. And how are you?
Doing well, hanging in there. We were just kind of got into the quarterback, depth chart. We're doing depth chart talk, so we just started kind of rolling into it with quarterback. I don't think there's a lot of debate or mystery there. I think it's obviously going to be Raiola, and then Gramstad, right. I believe, will be the backup. Davalia, TJ Lateef, a lot of talent in that room. And just was saying, I think a lot of the success this year is tied to how well Dylan Raiola, how he plays and how big of a step does he take. I think if he takes a big leap, Nebraska's going to take a big leap.
Yeah, and I think that he has the ability to make throws on the run, make all those types of throws. He is a very, sound quarterback in terms of fundamentals and things like that. So I don't really think he's a developmental, type of player like he was in his freshman year. I think he's going to take a big leap, and he's lost, a good amount of weight too, which I think will help him. People forget that he was a freshman and, leading this program under center, and I think that's only going to benefit him in 2025.
Yeah, having that experience, another full off season, and getting in the strength and conditioning program for Nebraska, which is it's legit. I mean, they've
Mhm.
got the nutrition, they've got NFL caliber facilities, strength coach, all that stuff. So, a lot of good things going on there, and I think Dylan Rayola does seem very much like he's. I think he's going to throw over. I think he's going to hit 20 some touchdowns. I think he's going to hit 3,000 yards. He completed 67% of his passes last year, and he didn't have a great receiving core. And now I think that receiving core has been greatly upgraded. We'll get to that in a second, but let's switch over to running back. Now we've got Isaiah Mosey in the room. How do you think that shakes up the depth chart, or do you think that it will going into this fall?
Given how good an athlete Mosey is, I could maybe see him challenging, and I'm not saying he's going to be, but challenging for that second spot. I think Emmett Johnson is a starter, but Quentin Ives and Isaiah Mosey. I mean, if Mosey has a good camp, I could see him challenging for that second spot. Would you agree with that, or do you think it's Ives just based off of the experience he did get last year?
I mean, I think it's a possibility. I think all those guys are really, I think Nelson, could be in the mix. Parker, if he's healthy,
Mm,
I think it's pretty wide open, and running back is a position, where guys do tend to have the ability to contribute early.
yeah,
I mean, there is more to it. You obviously have to pass block and do all those things, but I've heard a lot of good things about Nelson too, about his running ability, so I wouldn't sleep on him. I think all three of those guys have a chance to get legitimate playing time this year, and it will be really interesting, especially with Mosey. Because you look at the other two, and I obviously have a lot of running ability, but Emmett Johnson is also a guy that they like to throw the football to, and
hmm
I wonder how Isaiah Mosey could be factored into the offense as a passing threat out of the backfield, because if teams don't account for that, as we saw with Johnson last season, it can be dangerous. And Dana Holgerson actually knows how to take advantage of that.
like I said the other day, I could see Mosey being used in a Wandale Robinson type of role. Um, and that would not necessarily be. Now, I want to specify Wandale Robinson at Kentucky, not necessarily Wandale Robinson at Nebraska. But so we mentioned some of the running backs. Where do you think Connor Booth fits into all this? Because he's a name that shouldn't be forgotten either.
Yeah, I actually was putting together a little highlight thing of Connor Booth the other day and got sidetracked. But yeah, I think he had over like 2,700
Mm,
yards or something crazy
yeah,
last year in high school. He's a
yeah,
really, I think, underrated guy. I don't necessarily expect him to contribute this season, but it wouldn't shock me. And I don't think, he should be ruled out going forward. I do think that he gets overlooked partially because of the star rating, and he's from Nebraska, so maybe he plays a little bit of a lower level. I think so. Maybe the rushing yards don't seem quite as impressive, but this dude's a baller. He really does have a natural running ability. He's a better, just watching his highlights, he's a better athlete than I thought that he was.
yeah.
Because
Me too. Actually, I thought the same thing when I first
yeah,
watched.
you just kind of have some misconceptions at times. So, yeah, I wouldn't rule out him contributing maybe this season, because like I said, running backs just sort of have that it factor, right? Like some guys, just when people are chasing them, they just know how to get away. You know what I mean? There's not really anything coachable about it. They just have that instinct of like, this guy's here, I need to go there, and that's part of it. They have the vision, they have the ability to make people miss, they have the explosiveness. And so the thing about running back is it's really hard to judge until you're going live, because it just doesn't, until you can actually live tackle people, it's really hard to I mean, yeah, maybe I could have broke a tackle, but you
Yeah.
just can't really tell. So I think fall camp in the first few weeks, like we'll get a better feel for where this running back competition is. But it wouldn't surprise me if all four of those guys got a chance behind Emmett Johnson this season. And I think it is kind of, when you break it down that way, maybe we do have a little bit more running back depth than I think some of the fan base thought.
And you never want to see this part of the game, but running back is also a position where injuries can stack up quickly. I remember in
Mhm.
2023, we were down several running backs by the third week of the season, and so depth was an issue. So some of these guys may be able to play, hopefully not because of this, but due to injuries and nicks and bruises here and there.
And before we move on, it should be noted that Isaiah Mosey is now officially listed as a running back on
Yep.
the roster. So that position move is official. He is a running back. I'm assuming that's where he's going to be going forward. Not that he can't be a wide receiver, but I thought it was interesting. He said, people are saying I'm trying to be this or that. I'm just trying to be Isaiah Mosey, and this is the way that I can get on the field fastest. So,
Well, I mean, I think that makes sense because when you look at the wide receiver group, I mean, I think there's a log jam there, and we're going to get to that. But so I think this was a smart move by him and the coaching staff. Put your best athletes on the field, and I think Isaiah Mosey is not just a good, wide receiver and potentially running back, but a good athlete.
Yeah, and just a guy, watch his kick returns, watch him run the ball, watch his high school highlights of him running the ball. But yeah, thanks for the comment from YouTube. That depth is going to be tested for sure at running back. And yeah, I mean, anybody who watches Big Ten football knows that you need 2, sometimes 3 running backs to get through a season. I mean, you definitely can't get through a season with one bell cow running back. I mean, so Nebraska's going to need one of those other 3 or 4 guys to emerge as at least somebody that can reliably carry the ball 5 to 10 times a game. Because if they try to give Emmett the ball 20 times, if they try to give Emmett Johnson like 250 carries this year, I just don't know how that's going to work out. He's never had a workload like that. And I do worry, even if he's able to stay healthy, if you just keep having that grind every week, by the time you get to November, you're not quite as effective. So I do think it's important to find some reliable depth to help keep Emmett Johnson fresh and not wear him down, too early in the season.
I do think that this offense is a little bit more friendly to running backs in the sense that they won't have to carry as big a workload. But I agree with you in the sense that we're still going to have, the running back featured in the offense quite a bit.
All right, let's talk about wide receiver then. And this is going to be, I think the depth chart is mostly set at the top, with Dane Key, Isaiah Hunter, and Ja'Cory Barney. I think those are the clear top 3. Those are the guys I would expect to lead the team in targets this season. And I think we're going to see those 3 guys out there a lot. Dane Key really is a stud. I mean, he was – I can't remember if he was all conference in the SEC, but he put up legitimate numbers, in the SEC. I think he's going to have a better quarterback in Dylan Raiola. And he's just experienced in, beating man coverage, all that type of stuff. So he's like a true legit number 1 wide receiver. I really like Isaiah Hunter in terms of his ability to get deep, true. I mean, if you look at, I just think both of these guys, Dane Key is an upgrade over Jamal Banks in terms of that complete receiver, and then Isaiah Hunter is that guy who can get deep. And then you've got Ja'Cory Barney, Cortez Mills. You've got some other Isaiah Mosey who could still be a factor there. You've got Quinn Clark. So a lot of weapons, I think, for Dylan Raiola, and it's going to be interesting to see how that all fits. Obviously, I don't think it's like we've talked about before. There's going to be some different guys, some different moving pieces, and guys playing different snaps. How will Jeremiah Jones fit into this as a 6'4" freshman? Can he get on the field? So that's the interesting thing is you have these kind of mainstay guys that you expect to get most of the targets, but then you're wondering too, how are guys like Quinn Clark or maybe a Jeremiah Jones, somebody like that? Can somebody else from the bottom of the depth chart, Demetrius Bell, can one of those guys kind of emerge and also become part of that top, pass catching group?
Well, when I look at this wide receiver group, I'm very interested to see how Dana Holgorsen factors in Ja'Cory Barney a little bit, because Holgorsen got Barney involved a little bit more as a pure wide receiver once he took over as offensive coordinator. I mean, he had his breakout game against Wisconsin, 9 catches for 85 yards. Even before that, against UCLA, he had 4 catches for 78 yards. So you started to see Ja'Cory Barney being used out wide a little bit more. And I'm very curious on how they'll scheme up things so that they continue to get Barney the ball, because it was effective.
Yeah, and I think when he set the freshman record for receptions last season. So, I definitely think he's going to have a big year. And man, I mean, if not to get too crazy, but how many receptions do you think between Dane Key, Isaiah Hunter, and Ja'Cory Barney? How many receptions do you think you think all 3 of those guys will get like 50 receptions or close?
Oh yeah, without a doubt. Based on how this offense is kind of drawn up and schemed, I think at least 45 plus for all 3.
Yeah, and I don't think that's which would be, I mean, that'd be insane production. So, but you look at it, I think there is a big chance for this offense to take a leap. I think you are going to see, the kind of offense that Matt Rule was kind of hinting at last year. He said, like, if you try to stop the run, we'll beat you, we'll kill you deep, in the passing game. That didn't really come to fruition last year. I think it will this year. And part of it was the receivers, last year just weren't quite good enough in man coverage. And Raiola, he had a few moments too. I'm not going to say he was perfect because he had a lot of deep throws where he was just a little bit off, by
Yeah,
just a tiny bit. But it takes time, right? It takes time and development. Especially at the quarterback position, is not linear. It's not going to be up every single week. You're going to have some weeks you're up, some weeks you're down, and we saw that last season. And we saw when it went down, it was not very good, like the Indiana game. But when it was good against Wisconsin, it was really good. And the thing about quarterbacks is when they grow, you start to see more of the really good. And we're going to see much more of Dylan Raiola, versus Wisconsin, that player. If
yeah,
we see that guy for most of the season, like, I'm sorry, guys, we're going to win 9-10 games. Like, that's just what's going to happen
I
unless
agree.
unless
And
we
I think
continue to be the most snake bitten program in college football. So
I hope
there
not.
is that.
I mean, sometimes I wonder why I decided to cover this team. But anyway, well, my thing that I was going to say was, fans forgot that last season we were seeing college quarterback development in real time. So there were a lot of peaks and valleys, and I think there will be a lot more peaks this year than valleys.
Yeah, and I am wondering, I'm just interested, like, can Quinn Clark find a way to get on the field? Is he still a year away? I mean, he made the trip to USC last year, and that was part of the reason I think why Malachi Coleman ended up transferring, is because he felt like he was going to get time in those past few games. Then Quinn Clark, kind of passed him up on the depth chart when Dana Holgerson got hired. So I'm wondering, is he ready to make some kind of impact? Because if you're talking about just pure athleticism, I mean, he might have as much as anybody in that wide receiver room. I don't know if you saw the volleyball, the football versus volleyball play. I mean,
Yeah,
he had some moments in there, and it made me be like, man, we should have men's volleyball as a sport. But anyway,
and Co brings up a good point here. I mean, Tank Dell was involved often in that Houston offense. And, I think one of Holgerson's strengths is feeding the playmakers. And that wasn't always the case last year, right? We didn't always feed the playmakers in the proper spots last year, and that hurt the offense. So I do think, we'll see kind of Tank Dell Houston Cougars numbers with this offense for multiple receivers.
so now to tight end, and it's interesting because you talk about roster updates, and the roster update with Carter Nelson, he now is officially listed as a tight end. He's also listed at 6'5", 240 pounds. Like, my goodness, and he looks like it. If you
Yeah.
saw him at when he did a recent media interview, he looks 240 pounds. Holy cow! So this tight end room, man, it's looking better than we thought it was going to be. We thought maybe it might be, Luke Lindenmeyer and Heinrich Harburg, who are still going to have big impacts this season. But now you've got Matt Rule at Big Ten Media Day saying that Carter Nelson, we just talked about, is 100%. He's ready to go. And Mac Markaway, the tight end from LSU, 6'4", 250 pounds, played as a true freshman at LSU. He's also 100% ready to go. So what does all that mean for the tight end room?
That means that like you said, there's a lot more depth than we thought. So, as it stands today, I would probably go Lindenmeyer at 1, Nelson at 2, Markway at 3, Harburg at 4.
I don't know. That's tough. I don't know, man, because it's like that makes sense though. No, what you're saying makes sense.
Yeah, no, I'm just thinking because like you could easily like flip those names around.
Yeah, honestly, I think you could put just about. I mean, I don't know if Carter Nelson's ready to, like, blocking wise right away to start as like the inline tight end. I'm not sure. Maybe he is. I haven't seen it. But I definitely think he's ready to catch some passes. And Matt Rule he even said, like, he needs to be ready August 28th. So I think the thing about, like, when you have a tight end like Carter Nelson who can run like a receiver, like, you can find those mismatches. And Dana Holgerson is really good at that type of thing. And that's what good offensive coordinators do. They find their dudes, they figure out who their dudes are, and they find a way to create matchups for them, right? I mean, that's the entire game. Right? Who are my best players, and how do I get them the ball the most? That's really what coaching boils down to. And I know that the best coaches keep things simple. And so if Carter Nelson is a stud, this, like, Dana Holgerson will feed him the ball. So I'm excited about him. But Mac Markaway also started a game at LSU as a freshman, and he caught like 3 passes for 16 yards. So I don't know. Would surprise me.
I am very curious about him just to see what he can do.
Yeah, and it was weird how he just kind of left the program at LSU after he was hurt and then came to Nebraska. But, whatever, it works out for us.
Right, yeah.
So, I mean, 4-star recruit. He was ranked as the number 3 tight end in the country by ESPN and number 8 by Rivals.
His
So
his story is so interesting. Didn't he come on a visit on his own? Didn't
yeah, I
tell
think
anybody, kind of, and
yeah, and
just
I think what he did is he came and did like an academic visit and just did it as like a student. And then Matt Rule said they're like, oh yeah, Mac Markaway is basically enrolled here, and then kind of went onto the team. So I don't. It was kind of a weird way to
such an interesting story. Yeah.
sort of circumvent the transfer portal, but I mean, I guess it worked out. So
Hey.
um, yeah, and this actually, I'm interested with Keelan Smith. James Allen brings up Keelan Smith, the son of Neil
Mm.
Smith, of course. And I do like him. I'm wondering where he's going to wind up. Let's see where they got him listed. That's actually one of the guys I was looking for here. Because he is kind of a guy that's been going back and forth between tight end and receiver. A really good pass catcher. I don't know if he is going to have like the blocking ability. Let's see here. I think they've got him. Yeah, so they've got Keelan Smith still listed as a wide receiver. 6'3", 205 pounds. Redshirt freshman. He's another guy that potentially could, make some noise on the depth chart. I don't think he had one reception last season. But I really did like him coming out of high school. I thought his best football was ahead of him. So
Now you also see why Isaiah Mosey moved to running back. I mean,
yeah, it's
you
loaded.
think about all these just Quinn Clark, Keelan Smith, like names we didn't even mention initially, like they could be factored in there too. But that's a good pull, James. I'm very curious to see where he factors in.
Because he was like, I'm trying to think back, but I feel like he was a really productive high school player.
He was.
And a Husker legacy, of course, with the great Neil Smith. And I'm just trying to see if there's any other receivers that we've missed that could make an impact. Well, yeah, and I always pronounce his name wrong. Janiran Bonner. I cannot
Duranian,
for the
I think.
Duranian. Yes, I cannot for the life of me. Duranian Bonner. I always get that one mixed up. And then, so he's another guy. Maybe he will have a role. I don't know exactly what it'll be in terms of like pass catching, but this coaching staff loves him. I mean, whether he played fullback or tight end or wide receiver, he'll be out there blocking on screens. Like he'll play a bunch on special teams. Like, I don't know if he's gonna catch a ton of passes or put up a bunch of stats, but Bonner will play quite a few snaps this year, one way or another.
And just as a follow-up on Smith, as a senior in high school for Liberty North, he caught 74 passes for 1,268 yards and 17 touchdowns. He was an all-state and all-conference selection, so he was definitely a productive player at the high school level. So so I guess that's a name that I'll be watching for. See if I hear anything during preseason camp. Keelan Smith is definitely a name I'll have on my radar.
But yeah, I think in terms of tight ends, it's going to be kind of interesting. I think the guys who are the best blockers will have a role, and I think they'll be, if like Carter Nelson's the best receiver or Markaway, I think they'll have a role too. So it's going to be interesting to see how those snap counts kind of, accumulate over the year. But I could see all four of those guys playing pretty big roles at the tight end position.
Yeah,
so
for sure.
Offensive line, I think we have a pretty good idea of what that's going to look like outside of right tackle. But I think obviously Elijah Pritchett, Loftoski, Justin Evans, Rocco Spindler. I think those four guys are pretty much locked into starting positions right now. Maybe Loftoski could move to tackle if things don't work out there. Maybe someone like Graham Bricks is so good at guard. You're like, okay, let's put Bricks in at guard and move Loftoski to tackle. So I mean, some of those things could happen, but I definitely think those four guys are going to start. You've got that right tackle position: Tyler Knack, Gunnar Gatula, Teddy Prohashka. I don't know. I keep hearing Steve Sipple the other day wrote about Teddy Prohashka. It really feels like there's. I know you don't want to hear it, Danny, but there might be some momentum for this guy to win that job if he could actually, stay on the field long enough to play some football.
I mean, I'm pretty sure I've heard this like 3 times now, so I hope so. Like I'm not wishing bad on the guy, but I've heard this before, so we'll see. I'm not holding my breath.
But it'll be interesting to see how that battle works out. I think the goal should be to make sure that you have 8 or 9 guys who can realistically start, because that's what you're going to need. These first 5 guys aren't going to make it through the season.
Yeah.
And that's just I mean, you can look at Nebraska or any team. It's very rare that you make it through an entire season with your first 5 starting. So,
which may work out to Teddy's advantage if he can come in like when he like feels better later in the season or even in the middle of the season instead of taking on a starting role immediately. You know, kind of not have him as a starter, but just kind of have him there to, you know, shore up things maybe for like a game or two if needed, and not necessarily put a ton of pressure on him to like come in and compete right away. Because one of the things that I think, you know, he kind of was, you know, got screwed on was the fact that, you know, the previous coaching staffs wanted him to just slide in and contribute right away while still recovering from injury. And I think this will allow him to kind of, you know, slide in when needed and play some football and be healthy.
Yeah, and it might be, you know, even those first few games they could get some snaps against like Akron or Houston Christian or whoever. So we'll see how that works out. But other guys that I'm looking for, you know, obviously Grant Bricks, Gibson Pyle, Preston Tamua, just keeping an eye on their development, their positive development, kind of moving forward, because I think all those guys probably will have a chance to start, you know, within the next year or two. I like how the offensive line development is going. I mean, it's nice that, like, I mean, Grant Bricks might find his way into the lineup this season, but Nebraska probably doesn't need him right away. And I think that's a good sign that they can allow even some of their higher ranked offensive linemen to develop for a couple of years before throwing him into the starting lineup.
We didn't really have that for a number of years. And also don't forget about, and I'm going to pronounce his name wrong, but Houston Caina Torres. I think he's not someone that I think is ready to start right away, but he's a very, very good offensive line prospect and a very intriguing one too.
Yeah, that's our future starting center right there. So they can groom him, and when Justin Evans heads out, he can take over. So I think that's
honestly they've done really well at the center position between Ben Scott, Justin Evans, and hopefully Torres. So that's one area that I think Matt Rule's done really well at.
And I would say outside of left tackle, I think center is probably the most important position on your offensive line. I know it's not always like highly recruited or highly drafted, but if you look at the offensive lines that are really good, they always have a good center every time. So, you know, you really can't have an elite offensive line without an elite center, in my opinion. So
hey, I mean, Cam Jurgens got paid for being a good NFL center, so
yeah, it's legit. I mean, when you have guys who can move and can make the calls, and it's not easy either, just the mechanics of it. So anyway, the offensive line, I think, which I know a lot of fans have been, you know, worried about, and rightfully so. Yeah. I mean, when Nebraska, not even just Nebraska, when the teams that win championships, they dominate in the trenches. That's football. As much as we want to, you know, pay the quarterbacks and the wide receivers and yada yada yada, the teams that win consistently, they can move people and they can stop people from moving them on defense. So let's switch over to the defensive line, I guess, with that. And you know, the guy that I have on the teaser of this video, Riley Van Poppel, because, you know, he's obviously going to be on the depth chart, at the top of the depth chart, I think, at defensive line. You know, whether it's not necessarily nose, I think Elijah Judy's more going to be the nose tackle. I don't know how it's exactly going to work out, but I know those two guys are going to play a lot in the interior. I'm interested to see how Williams Nwaneri kind of fits into the mix. And then, you know, like Keanu Davis, you know, he to me feels like, you know, a guy that starts on the base defensive line and then can go outside and, you know, either be an outside pass rusher, maybe an inside pass rusher too, because he's 275 pounds now. Dylan Parrott, you know, is another guy I think that's going to get some snaps. Mason Goldman, but
Jordan Ochoa.
Yeah, Jordan Ochoa, who I think they actually said he moved to linebacker, but you know, they're talking, but that. Yeah, that's that jack position though. So I mean,
gotcha.
Still pass rusher. So yeah, Sua Lafutu. You know, so there's some guys here. There's, you know, let's see, Van Poppel. They got Van Poppel at 295, and that's just, he's bigger than that. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I've seen him in pictures, and it's like, holy.
There's no way he's not like 315. And I want to say the same with Elijah. They have Elijah Judy at 6'3", 300. So
yeah, no way. No way.
Yeah. I agree with that. And Parrot's 320. So they do have some 300 pounders. I'm trying to see what they have Gabe Moore listed at, because I really like him. David Hofkin, 6'7". He's 285. So he's gained 30 pounds since he joined Nebraska last as a freshman. Gabe Moore is 6'7", or no, excuse me, that was 6'5", 290. That's where I was looking. I got mixed up, but 6'5", 290 for Gabe Moore.
6'7" for Hoffman. Like, wow.
Yeah, so Nebraska's got at Hofkin, they've got 6'7", 285, and Noweri is 6'7", 265, and they're both redshirt freshmen. So yeah,
Crazy.
that's going to be fun to watch those guys. And but when I saw David Hofkin, because the first talk was like offensive tackle, I was like, this dude's a pass rusher. This dude's a defensive lineman all day. So, I mean, 6'7" if you're athletic, and then the other thing, as a 5 technique, just get those hands up. If you don't get to the quarterback, just get those hands up and bat the ball down. So I'm really interested to see if he makes any impact at all this year. But I think the two players who I think could make an impact that people aren't talking about enough, Jalen George from East Tennessee State, and then Gabe Moore from Mississippi State.
Yeah, and like we saw with some of the other positions, I think, the defensive line can be interchangeable. I think we're going to see a lot of rotations and stuff like that. And Gabe, and like you mentioned, guys with multiple years of eligibility, Gabe Moore, Williams Noweri, with this transfer portal class, they focus on a lot of guys with multiple years. So I think that's going to be important for the growth and development of the line moving forward.
And Jalen George too has multiple years to play.
Yeah, that's right.
So he and this is a guy, I know it's FCS, but he started 23 games the last 2 years at ETSU. So and he's 6'3", 285 pounds, and he's a tough dude. So I feel really good about the defensive line. I think Matt Rule even talked about his confidence. I think his confidence in the offensive line was kind of emanating. And then that doesn't even mention guys like true freshman Cade Petrizak coming in at 6'5", 265 pounds. Malcolm Simpson, 6'3", 285. Tyson Terry, 6'2", 310 pounds. So you look at
Andrew Marks, offensive lineman or defensive?
He's offensive lineman right now. Yeah,
because he can play both, right?
He could play both. I think they're kind of hoping he develops as a tackle. But yeah, so I mean, this defensive line class, though, holy cow! I mean, Malcolm Simpson, Cade Petrizak,
very excited for Simpson. Yeah,
Tyson Terry, and then you've got Noweri and Hofkin as redshirt freshmen. So lots of exciting pieces in the defensive line room. Gabe Moore. Just looking, I'm wondering how many guys are even seniors here in this defensive line room. Maybe Judy.
I don't think too many.
Judy might be the only one. I'm just going to scroll through to confirm this.
And I know a lot of people are a little bit worried about the inexperience, but I believe it's about building for the future too. And if they can kind of develop well under Terry Braden, this is a big year for Terry Braden. But if they can develop well, then they'll be set for multiple years.
Yeah. So thing about this is that Elijah Judy is the only senior on this defensive line. So the idea that Nebraska could have its entire defensive line back for the 2026 season, that's pretty exciting. And we didn't even mention Cameron Leonard, who was a freshman like All-American after having like 3.5 sacks. So hopefully he has a bounce back season. Davis, but man, that's an exciting group. And then you add you look at your linebackers, which we'll shift into that, but Jason McCullough obviously will be leaving after this season, but Vincent Shavers, who we all expect to take a big jump, McGahee, and then you got Christian Jones and Dawson Merritt. So you got all those guys who could play this year, and then our younger players, Maverick Noonan, Jordan Ochoa, and then also obviously Javin Wright, Marquise Watson, Trent, who are going to play big roles this year. So you'll have 3 veterans leaving that linebacker room, but you also have a lot of young talent there too. So I mean, this defense, the more I think about it, Nebraska, with the way Raiola and everything's going on offense, like they are positioned pretty well. Yeah. Well, he's a safety. Yeah, and he'll graduate after this year, but yeah, this team is set up really well, I think, for the next 2 seasons.
Shout out to Javin Wright. He's been here since the Frost era.
I think so. Yeah, he's been around for a long time.
Just like Ramir Johnson. And
yep.
But no, I mean this linebacker group is one of the most excited. Like that's the position I'm most excited for. We've had a ton of depth there, and this is probably the deepest linebacker room. And you probably remember more than me, but at least since in the 5 years that I've been covering the team, this is the deepest the linebacker room has been, and a lot of talent and a lot of young talent too. So.
Yeah, it's starting to feel more like the Pelini era in terms of just like having depth and guys who I think could play in the league. Because yeah, I think Shavers is going to be an NFL player. I think McCullough's going to be an NFL player. I think McKay has a good chance of being an NFL player. Watson Trent and Javin Wright probably, maybe not, maybe Watson Trent, but I think those other three guys definitely have the traits it takes to be NFL players.
I agree. I agree. And it's going to be a lot of ways to scheme them up, a lot of ways to get them to rush the passer too, I think, and that's going to be important.
Yeah, and the pass rush will be. I think it'll be exciting this year, but I am interested to see how much Christian Jones and Dawson Merritt, get on the field this year as freshmen. Maybe not as much as we were expecting, but that might not be a bad thing.
No, and I think if you can let them develop and maybe take a season to kind of soak everything in and not rush them like previous coaching staffs have done with freshmen, I don't think that's a bad thing at all.
So secondary, another group I think where Nebraska has a lot of depth. Just really quickly, we know the safety is basically going to be Singleton, Malcolm Hartzog, Marcus Buford. You've also got, Ramir Stewart there, Caleb Benning, Justin Rhett in terms of kind of the next wave of guys, Kamir Prescott, another name. And then this cornerback group, I think, is as strong as it's been at Nebraska, at least during the entire Frost era, and far during the Rule era. You've got Sayer Wright, Andrew Marshall, Donovan Jones. Bly Hill is the guy that probably isn't getting talked about enough as an experienced guy. Yeah, Larry Tarver, Amari Sanders. So I think Jameer Khan. They go 6-7 deep at cornerback, and that's not even talking about Bryson Weber. The 4-star freshman coming in. So I don't think it's I think Sayer Wright said that they were like elite in the secondary. He thought they could be elite. I don't think that's hyperbole. I think this is a pretty loaded group in the back end of the defense.
I love the group of Marshall and Wright across from each other. Like those two alone, I think can make the secondary elite. I don't think Marshall gets talked about enough, like how good he can make the secondary and how much of a big time player he is. Like I really think he gets overlooked sometimes when talking about this. I know we've talked about him a bunch, but Andrew Marshall is an absolute stud, and I get he came from the Big Sky Conference, but there's a reason why Miami wanted him. There's a reason why a lot of these teams wanted him, and Nebraska was able to, win out. But Andrew Marshall, I think, is going to be a game changer for the secondary.
Yeah, I agree. And then the thing that excites me is that if Donovan Jones is your third cornerback, it's going to be harder for teams like say USC, for instance, to take advantage. I felt like in the past they could kind of go down the list of corners, or they could find a mismatch, right, for Nebraska, like they kind of found it last year. And I think that's going to be a lot harder to do this year because who in the secondary at the cornerback position are you really going to target? I mean, it could be Donovan Jones, sure, but I think he showed that he can get it done against some pretty good players. So, and guys are going to get beat. No cornerback's ever going to be perfect, but the idea that some team is just going to come in and torch us, like, we've seen in the past where we have to have guys playing 5-10 yards off because we can't man press, like that's not going to happen. And I think John Butler, within a couple of years, he's going to be viewed as like one of the best, defensive back kind of minds, as a really good defensive coordinator, but somebody who kind of specializes in the secondary.
I think he's already getting to that level. But I think he's just going to solidify it.
Yeah, so I have high expectations for the secondary, and I think I have high expectations for the entire defense. I expect this defense to be better than it was the past 2 seasons.
And I know people were like, "Oh, why didn't we get a big name defensive coordinator? Why are we just going in-house?" But from the day John Butler was hired, I had a feeling he could step in and be the defensive coordinator, and I was impressed with what he did in the Pinstripe Bowl. So I'm willing to give him a chance this year. I'm willing to give him a shot because I do feel confident in this defense.
Well, whether Tony White left, because Nebraska didn't really want him or he left on his own, he also was flirting with the USC job the year before. And they almost hired him to be their defensive coordinator. So it was smart by Matt Rule to have somebody else. And John Butler really wanted to become a defensive coordinator. That's kind of why he ended up leaving Buffalo. And like I said, these NFL guys, these NFL defensive coordinators, they're the way to go. I swear, they come up, they have the complex stuff. They know how to get it done on third down, because that's where you make your money in the NFL is on third down and in the red zone. And that's where Nebraska's defenses have faltered the past few years, on third down and in the red zone. Yeah, they could get more takeaways too. But I mean, how many times over the past 2 seasons have we seen 3rd and 8, 3rd and 9, 3rd and 11, 3rd and 12, 3rd and 7? I mean, it's just constantly.
Too many.
Yeah, way too many.
For like 4 or 5 years now.
Yeah, and it's like when you get in that situation, man, like I get that, especially against good quarterbacks, they're going to get some first downs on you, but that percentage should be, your 3rd and long percentage needs to be in the 30s. And I feel with Nebraska, it felt like it was in the 50s. And I mean, that might be over exaggerating it to a point, but
I don't think you're over exaggerating too much. I mean, part of it was the fact that Tony White didn't know how to draw up pressure, and so made it a little bit easier for the quarterbacks to just kind of take their time, sit in the pocket, and make their reads, which didn't help out the secondary either. And so I think that's going to change this year, because I think Butler knows how to draw up pressure schemes and different ways to get pressure to the quarterback.
And I think Nebraska's going to be better just getting pressure without, with just 3 or 4 guys, because I think McCullough is going to have success. I think Shavers and McGahee can both rush the passer. Jordan Ochoa can rush the passer. I think even Riley Van Poppel's shown he can do it from an interior perspective. And then you've got Nweri, Keona Davis, Cam Lenhart. So you've got a lot of different guys that you could have a nice little package of, like 4 defensive ends. The New York Giants used to do that back in the day. I mean, they could have like Williams Nweri and Jalen George inside, or Williams Nweri and Keona Davis with Cam Lenhart and Dason McCullough on the outside. So or McCullough and McGahee on the edge, and Nweri and Davis inside. Like that's a pretty fearsome pass rush. So they've got some fun pieces to work with there, I think.
And the guys in the future, like Christian Jones and Dawson Merritt, they can rush the passer too. So they fit schematically for what this defense wants moving forward. It's not just, hey, we're going to take 2 good defensive guys. They can do what this defense wants them to do, and really get after the quarterback and kind of have a nose for the football.
And Cade Petrizak too. I'm interested to see if he can. I'm not expecting like a huge impact, because it is hard for freshmen, but I think that he was one of the players that Matt Rule was most excited about, and that Nebraska really wanted to get. They had to beat out Oklahoma to get this kid, and I think he's going to end up being a really good player. So it wouldn't surprise me if he at least burned his red shirt. He's somebody I think will hopefully
be okay with.
Yeah, burn that red shirt, and then next year get him and Malcolm Simpson role, because you add that defensive line. Plus, you got like Malcolm Simpson and Petrizak in there as guys next season who are ready to, be starting level or contributor, at least contributing level players. And man, this defense could be pretty exciting. And you look offensively, and the seniors are what? Dane Key, and Rocco Spindler. I know is a senior. Pritchett's only a junior. I know there's been talk of him, getting projected as a 1st-round pick. So I don't know if he plays that well this season, then I guess, it is what it is.
Honestly, if Matt Rule can get a 1st-round pick under his belt with Elijah Pritchett, like let him go to the draft.
Yeah, but like, let's see, looking at the other guys.
And just while you're looking, like, we're now at the point where if you don't play him, you might lose him, or other teams will be coming after him. So burn as many red shirts, see what you have as possible, and get the most out of the guys that are still here. I mean, that's just the nature of college football right now, too.
So Latovsky, I thought he was he's a senior. So you have 2 seniors on your offensive line, and then Dane Key. And so, really basically 3 seniors on your offense. Bonner's a senior, but in terms of like the major impact players, like Emin Johnson's a junior, Dylan Raiola's a sophomore, and Isaiah Hunter is a redshirt sophomore. Barney's a sophomore. Carter Nelson's he's a sophomore. He played enough last year.
Yep.
So like you've got a lot of guys on this team. Like this program is set up for a run over the next 2 to 3 years with Dylan Raiola at quarterback.
And I think it's going to get even better with Trey Taylor. Honestly, I feel like Trey Taylor is going to be a huge X factor.
Yeah, he's really good. So hopefully that 2027 class can come together. It's crazy with 2020, even 2025 or 2026, whatever class we're in now. But I think like of the top 300 players, I think like 275 are already committed. So, I mean, there might be some chances for some flips and stuff, but a lot of these classes are pretty much locked in. And I think that's just, I think that's how it's going to be kind of going forward.
I'm watching Danny Odom. I'm still watching Danny Odom. I'm not as confident about Nebraska keeping him, but that's one that's going to, I think, last up until signing day. I really do.
Yeah, hopefully they can land Danny Odom, and then either I'd like to see him flip, Cameron Wilson or Jordan Campbell, one of those pass rushers, and
I
it'd
would
be
love
nice.
Jordan Campbell. You had him and Christian Jones, Dawson Merritt. Ugh, man,
Yeah,
that would
and
be
it'd be nice to get like a Jadarius Hughes too, because I think he could play that Malcolm Hartzog slot role pretty well in the future. So yeah, that's some recruiting talk there. I mean, in terms of special teams, the kicker position I think is kind of up in the air, but we know the punter is going to be Archie Wilson at this point. I think Andrew Marshall's probably going to be at least doing kick returns. I'm not sure about punt returns, but I think he'll at least do kick returns. So we'll see where that goes. Kevin Gallick's going to be, the long snapper. So hopefully, that's a big upgrade. But I mean, in terms of, positions, there's not too many that are a glaring weakness. I mean, there's maybe a couple, maybe a depth concern at running back a little bit, but I don't know. I feel a lot better about the defensive line now than I did this offseason, though, I have to say.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, especially when you look at the players with multiple years of eligibility and how the defensive line is growing just physically and size wise, I definitely feel better about the defensive line.
So, yeah, you guys, if you have any other comments or questions, any other topics you'd like us to discuss here in the last minutes or two, throw it in the chat.
One other thing. Go ahead, Chris. Sorry.
No, go ahead. I wasn't saying anything important.
One other thing I wanted to touch on, and I don't know how big this is, but Nebraska hired Matt Pierce as a recruiting coordinator, and Pierce was most recently Coastal Carolina's director of recruiting, and he helped sign the Sun Belt's #1 class in 2024. He's a Nebraska alumnus, so that's certainly interesting. The more people on the staff, the better. But what do you think about that? I thought that was an interesting tidbit.
Yeah, I thought that was a good hire, and I don't know if they, I read somewhere where they hired somebody else to be the recruiting coordinator. So I don't know if they're having multiple, recruiting coordinators.
Well,
that
the
guy
guy
from
Johnson from Michigan. Yeah.
So I don't know. I mean, sometimes those when they report those, the title kind of gets a little murky, but I think the more you can add to your staff, like you said, is a good thing. And especially somebody who's been a recruiting coordinator, who's run a recruiting department like that, I think he'll probably
Coastal Carolina has grown rapidly. So
yeah, they've got some good players. And so, he'll probably, I'm sure, report to Pat Stewart, who will then report to Matt Rule. So I think that's how, this kind of goes. And some of these guys, it's about like talent evaluation and setting up the board and kind of marshaling, your resources in terms of like the recruiting stuff. They can do a lot of the off the field work. And then, essentially they can work with Stewart to say like, hey, here's how we want to invest, our NIL money and our resources for roster building. So it's a whole process, but the more resources you get, the better that you'll be at it. So, I mean, the SEC teams and, the Georgias of the world, they have tons of these guys. So everyone that you hire is a step in the right direction.
Absolutely, especially with how quickly things move in today's NIL world with the money and the contracts and the resources and the money allotment and budgeting the money. Anybody that you can get that can help with that is a bonus in my book. And the fact that he recruited the #1 recruiting class in the Sun Belt. I mean, yes, it's a Sun Belt, but recruiting a #1 recruiting class is nothing to scoff at either.
Yeah, recruiting still recruiting. So it's, identifying talent and then being able to land it. So wherever you can do that, it's usually a translatable thing, especially since he's, has ties to Nebraska. So
absolutely.
Good move by Matt Rule. I was going to say, if you guys haven't checked it out, yesterday we published our game by game predictions, our complete final game by game predictions for the 2025 season. So
will we be right?
Yeah, will we be right? I don't know. Probably not. A lot of people think I'm going to be wrong, obviously. So
well, they love to pick on you, so I don't know.
I know. It's okay. I don't care. But I understand, though. I do have Nebraska starting 9-0, which, I mean, a lot of people don't really quite understand it. But, it's like, like I said, I'm just picking each game, and with each game, I think there is a chance. The most difficult games are at home, and this is going to be a team I think that's pretty tough to beat at home, and so I don't know, we'll see. But I just feel like, and one person was like, "How I don't know how in the world you have us losing to UCLA." It was like, well, how did we lose
we
to
thought that
UCLA
last year?
Last year, yeah, last year, and last year they were way worse. So I mean, how could I possibly think we could lose to a better UCLA team on the road this year? I'm not sure.
Any team can be beaten on any given Saturday. We could go 0-9. Hopefully not. But like we could go 0-9.
Yeah.
I mean, this Big Ten conference is so damn good. So many good football teams, and any team can be beaten on any given Saturday, or in our case, Thursday, sometimes Fridays, Tuesdays. They gotta schedule us on a Monday before you know it.
Yeah, and when you play teams matters too, who you played before and how difficult that game was. So I'm just thinking, like, you got USC and you beat USC, and then you've got Penn State the week after, and then sandwiched in between, you've got this weird road trip to LA against a team that's better than you think, but you're still going to be probably, I don't know, I was going to say you're going to be playing in a stadium that's half empty, but it probably won't be because Nebraska fans will probably fill it up.
Yeah.
So I mean, I don't know. I just think this somewhere along the way, I think this team is going to lose a game that it shouldn't, because that's what usually happens in a college football season. Most teams lose a game that they shouldn't somewhere along the way. And I think they'll lose the game to Penn State, which they probably should. And then I think they'll play Iowa the last week of the season, and that'll hopefully be the 10 win clincher for me. So hopefully I'll be right.
Minnesota's the game for me where they're going to lose, but they probably shouldn't. You've heard me talk about this on all week, but I really do have a sinking feeling about that game. PJ Fleck has our number, and man, I still remember, what was it, Brooks, the running back in 2019, Rodney Brooks or whatever. But they always have good players, and I'm just excited to get the season going and see the ebbs and flows of the season, because as much as we can suffer from ebbs and flows, our opponents can too. So,
yeah, it'll be fun. And yes, less than 5 weeks away now, so it's not going to be long until we get there. So we will go ahead and wrap it up, you guys, pretty soon. I think we'll have like 3 or 4 more of these, and then we'll be Coffee with Husker Big Red. We'll be back to the pregame show. So it's going to be exciting that before long we're going to be previewing games at this hour. So the summer's almost over, you guys. We've almost made it.
Boo. Well, yay, but also boo. I still like summer.
I do too, but I like football season more. So
yeah. That's
yeah. So all right, you guys. Well, if you haven't already, please make sure that you hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. Thanks to everybody who joined us on the chat today. We'll be back for another episode on Monday. So enjoy your weekend, and as always, go Big Red.
Go Big Red.